Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends. Hope God is blessing you wherever you are. We are continuing with the book of Job, pilgrimaging the book of Job. Last time we were talking about the perfect man. Today we are focusing on Job chapter 2, verse 29 to chapter 3, verse 26. The miserable comforters. So, friends, each and every one of us goes through moments of suffering, moments of pain. I would believe that once in a while, in a lifetime, we experience as if the world is turned against us. And in that situation, people who are around you, people whom you think they are closer to you, play a very, very pivotal role of comforting. But sometimes when they become more a pain than a comfort, then the situation becomes pathetic. And this is exactly what we are seeing when we start the Job chapter 2, verses 9 to chapter 3, verse 26. So friends, when you start the book of Job, on the life of Job, we often focus on his suffering and perseverance. But there is another layer, another battlefield, one that many of us know too well: the people. Comforters who do more damaging than the suffering itself. And the scripture labels them in one unforgettable phrase: the miserable comforters. Job sits on the ash heap. His wealth is gone, his children buried, his health destroyed, his dignity stripped. And the first controversy appears not from Satan, not from strangers, but from his own wife. Do you still hold fast of your integrity? Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die. That's Job chapter 2, verse 29. Sometimes we tend to rush to blame Job's wife, but friends, it is reality. It is a reality that pain can confuse even the closest to you. Pain can confuse even those closest to you. Grief can twist perception, and sorrow can turn a supporter into a stumbling block. But Job answers, shall we accept God? Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? That's Job chapter 2, verse 10. This is the controversy. Will Job let pain dictate his theology? Will he redefine God based on the moment? Job refuses. He holds God as constant, even when his life is collapsing. But here comes the issue. His three friends arrive. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. And at first, they do everything right. Job's friends, at first, they do everything right when they arrive. Why? The first thing, they do a lot of things right. A lot of things which are really expected and important whenever you go. And we can learn from Job's friends. Whenever you go, they are very, very miserable, but at least they know the formula. They started well. And we can pick the good things that they do and use them in our own lives. So what do they do? The first important thing that Job's friends did after hearing that their friend is going through a lot, the first thing they did, they come. They visited Job. So sometimes people take it for granted. I have seen it, especially in the rural areas, in those communities who value common or communal life. When another family is going through a period of bereavement, especially death, just people's presence plays a pivotal role in comforting. Not saying a word, just being there. So sometimes we have a serious challenge because we think that when somebody is going through a lot, we need to be talking to them and sometimes to be asking unnecessary questions. But that is not what really matters. What really matters is presence. So Job's friends came, they visited him. That was recommended. They did that is a rightful thing. So they did well because they come. They visited him. Secondly, they weep. Job was weeping. Job was mourning. And Job's friends who came in and they also joined him weeping. They haven't said the word so far. They came, they weep. So sometimes just sitting with your friend who is in pain, shedding tears, showing emotional love, not really words, but emotional love, goes a very long way in comforting. Thirdly, they sit with him. They did not go. They did not just visit for 2 seconds or 2 minutes and went away. They came, they weep, they sit with him for some days. And this shows great love. We have seen it in our in some African communities. If somebody dies, the closest relatives, they will spend the whole night, maybe for 2-3 days, sitting with their beloved one who's mourning or who's in pain, just sitting and talking to them plays a significant role. But amazingly, friends, what did these friends do again? They remained silent for 7 days. They remained silent for 7 days. This is unimaginable. This is unimaginable. This is not even believable. This is ridiculous. This is incredible. They remained silent for 7 days. I've seen people arriving at the funeral. The first thing they do certain things good. They come and they arrive and they visit their beloved ones. They weep. They sit down. But the greatest challenge or mistake what a lot of us do is to speak straight away. Start talking. Start questioning the one who is bereaving or the one who is in pain, firing him or her with a lot of questions, demanding explanations and stuff. That's the greatest mistake. And I think we should learn from Job's friends. They remained silent for 7 days. That means in those 7 days, Job's friends were just weeping, sitting with their friend in silence. So sometimes when people arrive at a funeral, they make a lot of noise crying. The next thing, they start talking, firing a lot of questions and so forth and so forth. But Job's friends remained silent for 7 days. And guess what? In silence they were very perfect. In silence they were very perfect. Before they opened their mouth, they were healing. Because sometimes the greatest ministry is presence, not explanation. But their silence hid dangerous assumption. Job must have sinned. God must be punishing him. That's what they were thinking. Their theology was simple, and of course too simple. Good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people. Therefore, Job must be bad. That was simplistic theology. But we can't blame them because this was a dominant theology in the Jewish community by then, that God blesses perfect and punishes the evil. So we can't blame them because that was the kind of thinking in their community. But in African communities, we think we agree that we have a saying that says, or that goes like, munhu wakanaka hararami, meaning those who are perfect do not live long, so they suffer more than the evil one. At least in African context, we understand this. So that was their theology. And beloved friends, good theology in wrong hands becomes cruelty. Good theology in wrong hands becomes cruelty. After 7 days, Job breaks the silence, not the friends. Job is the one who breaks the silence and not the friends. And this is interesting. And I think you can copy this. When you visit someone who is deeply in pain, especially after losing their beloved ones, visit them, sit with them, cry with them, and remain silent. After some time, they'll start talking to you. That means they're now ready to be talking. But you can't really arrive and start bombarding them with questions and explanations. So Job is the one who broke the silence here. But Job does not curse God. Job does not blame God. What did Job do? Job curses the day he was born. That's Job chapter 3. Job chapter 3 is the cry of a crushed soul. Job says, why did I not perish at birth? This is more serious now and more emotional. Why did I not perish at birth? I'm not sure, but some of us, we have gone through these moments. Why did I not perish at birth? This is not unbelief. This is not rebellion. This is humanity under unbearable pressure. This is humanity under unbearable pain, and this is humanity under unbearable suffering. Even the strongest believers have moments where hope cracks and darkness speaks. Job's lament is pain talking, not sin talking. But his friends cannot tell the difference. Once Job speaks from his pain, his friends responded not with compassion, but with correction, accusation, and interrogation. Let's talk about Eliphaz. You must have sinned. God doesn't punish the innocent people. Bildad. Your children died because of their sins. Zophar. You deserve worse than this. What are you going? You deserve worse than what you are going through. At this point, friends, I think we agree that these friends are not comforters at all. These are interrogators. These are prosecutors disguised as pastors. They weaponize the theology. They misuse scripture. They try to defend God instead of comforting Job. Friends, not everyone who quotes the scripture is speaking for God. Eventually, Job says, "Miserable comforters are you all." Job said in response to their attacks, Job labeled them miserable comforters. Job chapter 16 verse 2. Because instead of listening, they judged. Instead of comforting, they condemn. Instead of standing with him, they talked down. Instead of lifting him up, they pushed him down. They assumed the role of a counselor while lacking the heart of a shepherd. Job's friends teach us this. You can be factually correct and spiritually wrong. You can be factually correct and spiritually wrong. You can have accurate doctrine and still misrepresent God. You can know scripture and still fail compassion. They turned suffering into an investigation. They turned grief into a theological debate. They turned a hurting man into a suspect. Friends, Job's experience with miserable comforters teaches us deep truth. Number one, lesson. Not everyone who comes to you is sent to comfort you. Not everyone who comes to you is sent to comfort you. Some come to analyze. Some come to judge. Some come to speak when God never told them to speak. Number two, pain reveals who is truly for you. Job's friends were exposed in the fire. The same will happen in your life. Number three, not all advice is godly advice. Not all advice is godly advice. Some words sound spiritual but smell pride. Number 4, God defends his people. At the end of the book of Job, God says to Job's friends, "You have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has." Job chapter 42 verse 7. God himself vindicates Job. Number 5, God restores what people misunderstand. God restores what people misunderstand. God gave Job double portion. He replaced Job's loss by 2. He gave Job double portion, not because of his friend's speeches, but despite his Job's speeches, because Job remained faithful and resilient in faith. God multiplied his wealth and his belongings. Friends, you may encounter people who judge your journey, misread your pain, or assume your suffering is your fault. But the story is not determined by miserable comforters. Job teaches us: stay honest before God, stay faithful in pain, stay grounded in truth, stay away from voices that wound instead of healing, and let God be your defender, because at the end of the day, people may misunderstand your suffering, but God sees, God knows, and God will restore you. God will restore your life. The Miserable Comforters. Be blessed. We meet again in our next session as we talk about the hating God.